Program, we see signs of our Messiah's return, and as preparations are being made to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, stay tuned for Times of the Signs.
That Christians support Israel. I don't take it for granted that more and more people in the world are recognizing this. Our main mission in the world is, yes, that the Jewish people coming back to their homeland is not some kind of big privilege for the Jewish people because they're so smart, but it's because we have a mission.
The next temple can only be built when Messiah comes, so that's a controversial thing. But Matthew 24, Yeshua predicted that at the time of the end, before he comes, there would be a desecration of an existing temple, which leads us to believe that there must be a temple rebuilt before the millennial kingdom, before Yeshua comes. Because he refers back to Daniel and the abomination of desolation, that there would be a darkness and a desecration taking place in a temple when he comes, when Messiah comes.
I'm thinking about this temple that's all ready to go. How does that differ from the millennial temple of Ezekiel?
Well, this is the temple that will be up and operating,
yes,
and reinstituting the temple sacrificial system,
yes,
during the tribulation period, and it's the one that the Antichrist, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 4, will walk in and commit the abomination of desolation. Now, when Jesus Christ comes back, he builds the temple, Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 12, and he rules and reigns from that temple, Zechariah 6:13, which is a fulfillment of the Davidic covenant, 2 Samuel chapter 7, that there will be a temple on the Temple Mount where the Messiah, Jesus Christ, a son of David, will rule and reign.
I was just going to say, David's greater son,
yes,
is coming back.
So many believe that there are two temples to come. One, the third temple during the end times, maybe now, and then a millennial temple that the Messiah himself will have and will inhabit. Years ago, Zola and Tom McCall, Dr. Tom McCall, wrote a book called Satan in the Sanctuary, where they referred to the building of the temple for the time of the end, what some call the tribulation time, a difficult time, when the Antichrist himself would sit in the temple and desecrate it. That day may be coming soon. But I think about this, when I look at this area, and whenever I come here, I'm reminded of what we say at the end of each program. We always quote Psalm 122, verse 6, but the beginning of that psalm says, Samachti be'omrim li beit Adonai nelech. I was glad when they said, let us go to the house of the Lord. And so we see here the house of the Lord, the site of the house of the Lord, the place. We're looking at Hamakom, the holiest place in all of Judaism, and a precious site to Christian believers in Yeshua, to Jewish believers in Yeshua. And the controversy over this real estate has been rightly called the epicenter by Joel Rosenberg, because it is ground zero for all of the spiritual warfare on the planet. And the question is, who will rule from that place, and who will be worshiped in that place? And I think if you're watching this program, I want you to know that we believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that the one to be worshiped there is Mashiach ben David, Messiah, son of David, David's greater son, Yeshua.
The new World Trade Center Building 7 looms above the site of its original. Building 7 was a 47-story high-rise, not hit by an airplane. Yet it was the third modern steel-frame skyscraper to collapse rapidly and symmetrically on 9/11. It was a football field away from the North Tower and sustained minor damage from falling debris. Building 7's precipitous collapse was blamed on normal office fires.
I'm Steve Barish, founder and president of Barish Architects and Associates, Inc., a 33-year-old architecture planning and engineering firm. One of the things that really interested me is how quickly the Tower 7 fell. It fell within 7 seconds approximately from top to bottom. This building was built in the mid-'80s and met all the codes at the time.
From about 1965 until about 1985, most of my experience has been in high-rise, multi-story steel buildings. NIST would have us to believe that these was a typical office fire, scattered office fires, if you will, that brought this building down. Since the mid-'60s, I've tried to follow high-rise fires because they're something we worry a lot about as we design these buildings. And I'm not aware of any high-rise building that have come down as a result of fires.
The coup de grace for me was when I found out that Building 7 had collapsed later that day. And when I saw Building 7 come down, to me, the fact that it looks like a perfect controlled demolition of an intact building, I mean, that's what I call a smoking gun.
"9/11 was a Zionist false flag operation. Within 24 hours of the attack, America launched a Blame the Muslims campaign that ignited the Zionist war of terror on the Muslim nations surrounding Israel. Ultimately, the grand scheme of the Zionist plot is to reclaim Jerusalem and rebuild Solomon's Temple, which was destroyed by the Romans almost 2,000 years ago. Today, Israel's Jews pray at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, which is all that remains of Solomon's Temple. The design and cornerstones for the new Solomon's Temple have already been completed.
Every day, 3 times a day, Jews recite this prayer: "May it be your will that the temple be speedily rebuilt in our own time." It's a prayer they prayed for almost 2,000 years.
But Jews here in Jerusalem are doing more than just praying. Just a few steps away from the Western Wall, rabbis and craftsmen are building what they call a temple in waiting.
We're supposed to build a temple, and nothing about that changed. Nothing about that commandment changed.
Chaim Richman is a director at the Temple Institute in Jerusalem.
The Temple Institute is actively engaged in research and preparation for the resumption of the service in the Holy Temple, to the extent of actually preparing operational blueprints for the construction of the temple according to the most modern standards.
This menorah is just one of several vessels created for the next temple. It's covered with 95 pounds of pure gold and has a price tag of $2 million.
Piece by piece, the third temple is taking shape, with priest garments, vessels of copper, gold, and silver, and a new generation of Levite priests, specially trained for temple service.
We have enough in place now to resume the divine service and to build the temple. But obviously, a lot of things have to happen in order for this to happen.
Gershon Solomon leads a group called the Temple Mount Faithful. They commissioned these cornerstones for the third temple. The 6-ton stones were consecrated with water from the biblical pool of Siloam and cut with diamonds.
The Temple Mount, 35 acres of it, is the most explosive piece of territory on the face of the planet.
Jewish leaders have already established a training center in Jerusalem, where temple priests are now learning how to offer the required animal blood sacrifices and to conduct the daily temple services.
Now, of course, there's limits on exactly what sacrifices we can do because of the state of impurity that we're in. Some sacrifices we can't do without the ashes of the red heifer, but the Passover offering, national sacrifices we can perform in a state of impurity.
So what's stopping the Zionist Jews from rebuilding Solomon's temple? What's stopping them is a Muslim shrine called Dome of the Rock, which was built in 691 AD, right over the top of the ruins of Solomon's temple. It is one of the world's holiest Muslim sites. This sacred real estate is, without a doubt, the most dangerous real estate on planet Earth. The Muslim Dome of the Rock is the elephant in the room. The Zionist plan to rebuild Solomon's temple on sacred ground must, by necessity, be a plan that reduces the Muslim Dome of the Rock to rubble. Building Solomon's temple means the Muslim shrine must fall, either by a natural disaster like an earthquake, or a man-made disaster like an exploding bomb. A man-made disaster would surely be the spark that ignites World War III.
אין בן דוד בא עד שתיפול אדום המזלזלים בישראל. Ce que je vous ai dit tout à l'heure, c'est marqué dans Sanhédrin. Le Mashiach viendra que quand Édom, l'Europe, la chrétienté sera totalement tombée. Donc je vous pose la question, c'est une bonne nouvelle que l'islam envahisse l'Europe? C'est une excellente nouvelle, ça annonce la venue de Mashiach. Excellente nouvelle.
But let's talk a little more about it. So we need a majority of Jews, and according to the census, we seem to be there. So it could be any of the sabbatical years of the next 32 years, and that number really should be bigger because that's really what we got left. Now, imagine that you have a 1 in 32 chances of winning the lottery. Would you buy a ticket? Yeah. 1 in 32 chances. Yeah? How many tickets would you buy? How many tickets? A lot? Would you spend a lot of money on those tickets? Yeah, you'd invest a lot because it's a very high chance. So, for sure, just knowing what the Talmud says about the sabbatical years and Ben David coming, and also that there's going to be big wars and it's not going to be so simple to get here, which we now know. Now we know that. It's not going to be so simple to get here for the time. Some of you may be asking, who wants to be here? Who wants to be here, first of all, for the wars? And secondly, who says you can't come later or something? So the answer is there's no promises outside the land of Israel. There's just no promises. Right now, think about it. What makes you safe to be in any country as a Jew today? Answer? What? The answer is that there's Israel, probably most likely. I mean, the answer is because there's God, but the other answer is because there's Israel. You guys think, you think Netanyahu's job is protecting Israel? Netanyahu is protecting Jews all over the planet right now. Because people know if you mess with the Jews, you can mess with one Jew, you can mess up a cemetery, you can mess with a synagogue, you mess with the Jews in any country, the IDF's going to be there. Okay, they'll come in and they'll take care of business. That's the way it is. But when the whole world turns on us, yeah, when it goes bigger, I wouldn't want to walk around even New York City, not even the Lower East Side, where Jews basically founded the whole place. Not even the Upper West Side where the Jews live now. I wouldn't want to walk around anywhere outside the land of Israel if Israel's in trouble. Okay, if Israel's going through stuff. Another thing is that it says that the war will be quiet, meaning we get to be quiet, we get to watch it. We get to actually watch it, and rather it's a clash of civilizations, most likely Yishmael versus Esav. It's a clash of Western versus Eastern, meaning Arab nations. It's going to be more about the church versus Islam. It's going to be this like, and we, the Jews, are going to be this like still small voice. It's all going to happen over Israel. And haven't you guys been watching the news? Have you seen all these comments on Facebook of like it lists all the different countries of where people have been killed and all the humanitarian crises that have been going on, and we like rank still in who's been killed in Gaza. We still rank the lowest. Yet everyone's posting and articles and everything. Everyone's up in arms. Why? Because it's all about Israel. In the end, it's all the nations. That's what it says. The nations will rise. This is the prophets. Nations will rise for this ultimate battle all over Israel. It's all going to be about Israel. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
Here's the temple. Listen to what 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 says. Don't let anyone deceive you, the apostle says, in any way, for that day, the day of the Lord, the day of the wrath of God, the unprecedented wrath of God, will not come until the apostasy. And once again, atheists and unbelievers don't apostatize. Those who are believers are departing from the faith, a mass departure from the faith on the part of many. That day will not come until the apostasy occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction, the Antichrist. He will be revealed. We'll recognize him for who he is. He will oppose and exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple. Where? In God's temple. So that anticipates the existence of a temple at that time. He sets himself in God's temple. He commandeers the temple, proclaiming himself to be God. The most blasphemous thing he can do. And of course, this initiates the wrath of God toward that. So when we see the temple being built, and it's coming, it could very well take place in our day. I fully expect that. So when we see that 7-year period initiated where the temple is authorized to be rebuilt, look up, for your redemption is drawing near. Jesus is coming soon.
אבל אם הוא מכין את עצמו, כתוצאה מזה, והוא יודע איך להכין, ומסבירים, התורה אומרת, מה לעשות כדי להינצל? מה לעשות? תכין את עצמך.
ברוכים הבאים בשם השם. שמעתי יש 3 מיליון אנשים שכבר צופים בדבר הזה, שמכל הדברים שעשיתי, עשיתי אולי 1% ממה שאתה עשית, אולי 1%. אם עשיתי 1% אני כבר שמח. ממה שאתה זכית לעשות. אתה שליח מהשם, וסתם יש לך איזה זכויות גדולות למעלה. איך השפיע עליך כל הסיפור הזה?
איך השפיע עליי? קודם כל, לפני זה לא היה כל כך אכפת לי מהיהדות, ועכשיו זה השפיע עליי. עכשיו אני לומד בישיבה, אני עוד מעט גומר ללמוד מסכת ברכות, אני מתפלל 3 שעות ביום, כל הזמן מתפלל במניין.
עכשיו, מה שיותר מעניין אותנו, אני רוצה לשאול אותך שאלות על המשיח. היית יכול לדעת מי זה המשיח?
לא הייתי יכול לדעת, הייתי יכול לדעת מה התכונות שלו ומי הוא יכול... מה צריך להיות בשאלות המשיח?
ואתה יכול להגיד לנו אם הוא פה או שם?
הוא פה, הוא חייב להיות פה. לא יכול להיות שהמשיח הוא מישהו שלי. לא יכול להיות.
לא יכול להיות.
זה חייב להיות מישהו שפה, שאנשים מכירים אותו, אבל מתי שיהיה המשיח כולם יהיו מופתעים.
זאת אומרת שהמשיח בזאת שמתגלה, אז זה יהיה הפתעה, מה זה המשיח?
כן, כאילו וואו, זה המשיח ככה.
טוב, עכשיו אני רוצה לחזור לדבר אחר. אתה אומר שהיית יכול לדעת גם כאילו מה הולך להיות בעולם. שהיית שם, מה הבנת שהולך להיות?
הבנתי, לפי מה שאני הבנתי שם, שאני הייתי בוודאות אני יודע את זה. שהייתי למעלה, אז הבנתי מה הולך לקרות בעולם. ולפי מה שהבנתי, כמו שאמרתי לכם על המשיח והכל, הבנתי גם שהגאולה וההתגלות של המשיח זה ממש קרוב. כאילו זה עומד לקרות בזמנים הקרובים מאוד. כאילו זה אוטוטו. כאילו אוטוטו מגיע הגאולה. ממש.
עכשיו תגיד לי, שאתה שמה אין מושג של זמן. איך אתה יכול שמה להעריך מושגים של זמן? מה זה אוטוטו? זה 20 שנה, שנתיים, חודש, מה זה?
אוטוטו זה ממש, כאילו בחודשים הקרובים.
החודשים הקרובים.
Many people say, we've been hearing about it for thousands of years. We already heard about it. Move on. Worse than that, I meet thousands of people on a daily basis, and unfortunately, very sad, I hear people saying, it's not even true. It's not such a thing. It's an invention to make people have hope. And Hashem Erachem, what type of things I hear about the coming of Mashiach. So B'ezrat Hashem tonight I want to talk about, first of all, how close it is. In the last 2 years I made a very, very long research about the coming of Mashiach, only because I started running into people who kept telling me, it's never coming. It's coming in 2,000 years, in 200 years. And all sorts of answers like that I had to find enough places in the Torah that shows that the Geulah has to come right now. And Baruch Hashem, after 2 years of hard research, I found hundreds, not 2, not 20, hundreds of sources in the Torah, in the Tanakh, in the Gemara, in the Zohar, in Kabbalah, books of Kabbalah, hundreds of sources that prove and show exactly when Mashiach is coming, how it's coming, every detail that we need to know. So B'ezrat Hashem tonight, I can't go through the entire list. That will take us 7 days. I'm going to just talk about a little bit of them. But once we understand and we see, according to our sources, that we know that the redemption, the Geulah is coming, is what do we have to do? How do I get ready for the coming of Mashiach? Now a lot of people already in the back of their mind, they're like, we heard about it already. What is he going to tell us tonight? The reality is that tonight you have the opportunity to go out of this room and to understand and to believe and to know that Mashiach can come tomorrow. And people don't even know what it means that Mashiach is coming. They think it's some imaginary thing. The reality is when Mashiach is going to come, the world is going to come to a complete end of a cycle. After we fix the world, everything is going to be perfect. No diseases, no wars, no death, no envy, no nothing. We just sit in Eretz Israel, we learn Torah, and much, much more than that. Now the thing is that many people tell me, we've been hearing about it for 2,000 years. Why should it come now? So first of all, we've not been hearing about it for 2,000 years. We've been hearing about it for 5,776 years. Because the second the world was created, the Kadosh Baruch Hu was already talking about Mashiach. The book of Bereshit starts, Bereshit bara Elokim et shamayim v'et haaretz. First Hashem created the heaven and the earth. And the next verse, it says, Va'aretz hayta tohu vavohu, v'choshech al pnei tehom, v'ruach Elokim merachefet al pnei hamayim. The Midrash explains that when it's talking about that the land was dark and a whole mess, it's talking about the 4 exiles that we had. The exile of Greece, the exile of Persia, the exile of Babylonian, Babel, and the exile of Edom. It's talking about the 4 exiles. And when it's talking about V'ruach Elokim merachefet al pnei hamayim, the Spirit of God is hovering over the water, the Midrash says, Zeh rucho shel Mashiach. This is the Spirit of the Mashiach. So right when the world was created, we already knew that the world was created for the coming of Mashiach. We know based on the teachings of Kabbalah that before the world was created, 2 souls were created of the 2 redeemers, Moshe Rabbeinu and Melech HaMashiach. Then the soul of Adam HaRishon was created, and we are all part of Adam HaRishon. Now of course everybody says, okay, so you convinced me that we've been hearing about it for so long. Why now? Why now? He didn't come for so long. Why should he come now? What's different now than 500 years ago or 200 years from now? So the reality is that we know that Mashiach can come in 2 dates. And this is explained in the Gemara in the Talmud, based on a pasuk from the book of Yeshaya, that we know that the Geulah can come in 2 dates. The first date is called Be'ita, in its time. Be'ita in Hebrew is a kick, so this is with a taf. This is in its time. And the other option is V'achishena, I will bring it faster. These are the 2 dates that we know that the Geulah can come. The same way that a woman in this world gets pregnant, she goes to the doctor after all the mazel tovs, and the doctor calculates, and it says, okay, your due date is on that date. Calculates according to the weeks. 99.9% of the women in the world do not deliver on the due date. Some of them deliver a week before, some deliver 2 weeks before, Shem Erachem, sometimes 2 months before. Baruch Hashem, I have 6 kids. My wife is very precise that every time she's 2 weeks late. And every time the doctor's like, we gotta induce, we gotta operate. And every time I tell the doctor, don't worry, the one before came out. This one will come out too. Don't worry, they all come out. I never saw a woman that's walking 5 years pregnant. Don't worry, he's coming out. Don't need to induce him. So the same way that a pregnant woman gets a due date, also the coming of Mashiach got a due date.
Anyway, but he says when one will be up in civilization, the other will be down. When the other one's down, the other one will be up. And you look, Israel was up versus Esav with our first 2 temple periods. Then it totally went to Esav, that's Rome, an extension, then modern Europe, and then America, and all Western countries. Then they've been up, and we've been totally down. But all of a sudden we find the Tchelis in the color. Who's got some royal blue thread on them? Anyone got the thread? We've now found the thread, and we've got the right thread. We've now found the actual color and how to dye it properly to get the royal. It's not called royal for nothing. It's talking about royalty, who's on top. And now we found it. And not only that, it was predicted hundreds of years ago by Rabbi Nachman of Breslov the year they'd find it, and that is the year they found it. Okay? And there's all kinds of cool more stuff. I could teach you this class for like 5 hours, but let's just keep going. So the 17th of Tammuz, our lowest day hits 4th of July, the top of Esav's days, the best day in Esav's history. Now, it hits once in a while. Yeah, the United States of Esav gets 4th of July and 17th. It hits every like 40 years, okay? It hits sometimes. But what happened? One time in all of America's history did it flip. And they hit their lowest day on the 4th of July, and we hit a high day on the 17th of Tammuz. How could we have a high day? It's a fast day. It's our lowest day. How could it be high? Answer, it hit on Shabbos. And when the 17th of Tammuz hits the Shabbos, we do not fast, we party like every Shabbos. Just like we're in the 3 weeks now, but tomorrow night we're going to party. And then the last night, right before Tisha B'Av, the lowest fast day, the deepest, darkest day of Jewish history, we're going to party on Shabbos and then go into Shabbos. So this day, the 17th of Tammuz, our lowest day, hit the 4th of July once in all of U.S. history. It's only happened 7 times. It only will happen 7 times in the entire world history. Entire world, from the creation of the Big Bang, all the way till the edge of 6,000, it will only have hit 7 times. Okay? Till 7, it'll hit 7 times. 2 of those times will be during the time of American history. One already happened. What happened? 4th of July flipped to their lowest day. It was during the Gettysburg Battle. That day was called the high water mark because so many people were killed that they had to call a truce just to bury their dead. It was America's lowest day in their history, a day dedicated only for the burial of fallen soldiers. And we, all over the globe, we didn't know that was happening. There was no internet then. Jews all over the globe on the 17th of Tammuz were partying on that one day. Well, you can refer to your Jewish calendars and note that next year, Tafshin Ayin Hey, will be a 4th of July hitting the 17th of Tammuz on Shabbos. And that is the only other time it will happen in history. It's happened once in U.S. history, a couple hundred years ago. It's going to happen again this coming year. Okay? Now that is kind of trivia. It's kind of out there. It's kind of random, but who knows? Maybe it's an indicator. Maybe. I don't know. But it's pretty crazy, nevertheless, because it did hit once, and when it hit, it was the worst day for the United States of Esav and the best day for Yaakov. All I can say is just this is kind of the last chance to come here with what you own, okay? Because otherwise you're going to be jet skiing from Cyprus with whatever you're wearing at the time. So just that there's a chance now that we can actually listen to our rabbis and recognize that they didn't give us those drought years and all this. They didn't give it to us for nothing. The reason they gave that to us, because it's random information. We don't need that information unless, of course, they're telling us to prepare ourselves. They're telling us to be ready. They're telling us that it's not by coincidence we're in the land now, but we're actually supposed to live in the land, and we're supposed to be ready for this stuff. Okay? Now, I know everyone has parents, and they have their own pressures and stuff, but chances are your parents are, no offense to your parents, a little out to lunch about these kinds of things. Okay? They are Westerners, living Western stuff. They happen to be born Jewish, but they're living Western worldview. Okay, we're Jews. We don't have Western worldview. We have been hosted by Western worldview. We don't have Western worldview. We live amongst Jews who have a Jewish worldview. Our Jewish worldview comes from our sages who have taught us how to decipher the Torah and how to understand the world we live in so that we're ready at all times to be this eternal nation who, as promised in Deuteronomy, will be redeemed at the end of days. And all of history will finally make sense. So I think for all of us, we have to, it's a bit of a wake-up call. We all got to wake up a little bit, and like as much as we love our parents, sometimes you got to do tough love. Sometimes you got to do tough love. And tough love, what is tough love? Tough love is I love you so much that I'm not going to listen to you because I don't want to hurt you. And you may not understand this right now, but this is what's got to be because I'm a Jewish person. I'm a Jew. And Judaism is what informs my life. And I love you very much, and I'll honor you to the end. But in the end, I've got to answer to myself. I'm a Jewish person. And this is the edge of history. I want to be in the right place at the right time. And it doesn't mean you can't go visit and get closure and give hugs and all that and eat all the delicious delicacies of your mother's cooking, may it be kosher. But these are really amazing times we're in, and it's not by coincidence you're listening to this class. It's not by coincidence you've been hearing any classes you've been hearing. It's not by coincidence you're in Israel right now, and it's certainly not by coincidence that right behind me is the Temple Mount, and the first time in thousands of years that you could hear all this information on the other edge of history for the grand finale coming.
All the prophets gave their prophecies for the end of days. We are already in Acharit Hayamim, more than 20 years already. Everything they told you is for this world. We're lucky that Hashem said there are two conditions for Mashiach. Once, prior to schedule when you deserve it. Second one, whether you deserve it, whether you don't deserve it, in the end, it must come. But not for everyone. Before Mashiach would come, Ishmael and his children, which is the Arabs, will give the Jews the worst time in their history. Like it cannot be any worse than that. And we can see now what they're doing in the world. We saw what happened 2 days ago, how they took this Jew and slaughtered him like you slaughter a chicken. These people do not have even 1% of mercy. Hundreds of millions of them do not rest for 1 minute, and their plan is to destroy all Jews. Two-thirds of the world, which is billions of people, trying to destroy this tiny nation, a nation of Israel that have only 13.2 million Jews. Just before the Mashiach would come, before we digest the problem from the morning, already a new problem comes in the afternoon. There's not going to be a moment of rest. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring all the people before Mashiach come on their knees, one way or the other. Whether they want it, whether they don't want it, they're going to have to surrender. If they will get saved. And if they won't, open Zechariah 14, Zachary 14, and describe how the end of the world gonna be. Oh, no, I don't have to describe it to you. Open the Tanakh in English. Zachary 14, read the whole page. It describe a nuclear war. Everybody's gonna melt the skin. People would drown. Nobody would be able to save anyone. People's eyes would melt out. Horrible things. It's gonna call Gog Magog. What do you think is gonna save you? Your college degree? How many millions you have in your account? What kind of car you drive? How great of the doctor you are? How genius you are in computers? How handsome or pretty you are? Do you think that's gonna save you in those days? Everything will be worthless. Now, if we're gonna get to such a day, God forbid, the question is, what's the chance that we're gonna get saved? The Savior is coming to save who? Itzik with the earring and the ponytail and the tattoos, naked walking on the street? For the women who goes naked with high heels like this all the way from here to the ceiling? The Gemara explained very carefully that to get saved from the horrible days that will be in a war, and we already started it, if you don't see it with this ISIS, what's happening in all over the world right now, the Gemara say the world will be in a disaster state. Who is gonna get saved? רק מי שיש בידו two things, Torah and גמילות חסדים. Torah and kindness. Hashem gave two ways to get saved from the problems in the days of Mashiach. Chevlei Mashiach, the contractions before the shofar of Eliyahu Hanavi will be heard in the world. What does it mean, kindness? Torah, we understand what it means. What does it mean, gmilut chasadim? Gmilut chasadim is taking care of the poor, the widows, the orphans, poor family for the holidays, all kinds of things, helping here, helping there. When a person is getting involved in doing for others, when Mashiach comes, Hashem will be forced to do special miracles for this person. Everything is measure for measure. Midah keneged midah. You cared about others, you took your time and your money to help others. I am forced to go out of my way to help you in a time of problem. This is the way I'm judging everyone. Midah keneged midah. You love me, you're connected to me, you always trusted me, you gave up money for me, I'll do everything for you. When Hashem writes in the Torah, I will reward you for eternity, is it worth it to keep Shabbat for this eternity? Of course. Is it worth to be generous? Of course. The more you give, the more you take. Whatever you give, Hashem wrote in the Torah that whatever you give from what you have to others, it's actually wiring it to your eternal life. So technically, a clever person should have given everything he has, just to keep what he must have to survive, and everything he should wire to Olam Haba. Here, Mr. Learner, learn more Torah. Here is $1,000 a month. You don't have tefillin? Here is tefillin. You cannot afford bar mitzvah for your son? Here is tefillin, here is bar mitzvah, we'll buy the wine, whatever. This is how a person prepares his Olam Haba. Not building, buying, running, want to occupy the whole world.